Hello, everyone. This is Keith Stone with the Center for Atlantic Studies, and I'm here again with Greg Nagy and Alen and Sarah and Janet for office hours for version 11 of HeroesX. And today we are discussing the questions for hours 5 and 6. And Greg, these are both written in your voice, but I'm going to read them nonetheless. So
I am honored.
Thank you. In hour 5 of H24H, it took me, Greg, twice as long to say what I wanted to say, compared to the average length of the other chapters or hours. Sometimes I ask myself, was it worth it? But I ask the question differently here. Do you think that reading the songs of Sappho makes a difference in your overall view of Achilles? That's a great one. And for hour 6, about the keyword, Greg again asks, am I using the word therapeutic accurately enough if I say that the experience of identifying with others is therapeutic? To ask the same question in another way, does the use of the word therapeutic in English correspond accurately enough to the meanings of ancient Greek therapon, therapeuein? If you are more fluent in another language, does that language have a word like therapeutic? And if so, how does it correspond to the meanings of ancient Greek therapon, therapeuein? All right, but let's start with hour 5, the difference that reading Sappho has made in our understanding of Achilles.
Yes, there's a comment that when we listen to the songs of Sappho, we hear of Achilles as he was seen by the Greeks of Hellenic culture. And we see also him through the eyes of a woman. And seeing Achilles in another context, does make a difference in our view of him. So I think that the person is also interested in knowing maybe more about the reception and the transmission of Sappho's songs at that time. So,
yeah.
Well, Greg, you've written a lot about the transmission and reception of Sappho, as you continue to do, in fact, every week recently.
I've written so much, and Keith knows better than anybody in the universe because he was the editor of Classical Inquiries, and the last 5 essays for the last 5 weeks have been about the reception of Sappho. And the reason I asked that question originally, I still remember, is the same reason I asked the question that we went through at our last office hours, which had to do with liking Achilles. Because I'm saying to myself, if Sappho liked Achilles, how dare I not like Achilles?
Still don't like him much, but...
So in a way, that question and this question are interrelated. I wanted to have an eyewitness, so to speak, in ancient Greek song culture. By eyewitness, I simply mean somebody who imagines Achilles differently from us moderns. An eyewitness who would give us a different angle on what's interesting about Achilles, even if not likable. And certainly for Sappho, he is the ideal bridegroom. He's certainly a male love object. And for that matter, he was that in the traditions of the native island of Sappho. That is to say, in both the myths and rituals of this island, Lesbos, or as it's pronounced in modern Greek, Lesvos, Achilles was the idealized bridegroom who never became a bridegroom. And that makes it even sadder because every girl wants to be every girl wants to be his wife. Go figure. As I say, I'm not expecting unmarried persons today wanting to be the wife of Achilles. I get it. But these are the facts, I think, of ancient Greek song culture. We have to deal with them.
One of the participants picked up on your what just you said, comparing Achilles the warrior and Achilles the bridegroom.
Yes.
And she, this participants mentioned that there's a pathos in this comparison because Achilles will never be a bridegroom.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's so sad, yeah.
And this comment reminded me Sappho's fragment 105a, the apple, the top of the apple that no one will be picking up.
Yes. Yes, which kind of, that metaphor cuts in so many different ways. It's the sadness of non-fulfillment. Yeah.
Greg, you've often said how much of women's song has made it into Homeric epic. And I'm trying to think, is it really the case that there's no woman's perspective, I suppose you would say, on Achilles in the Iliad? Maybe not in the Iliad, certainly in the Odyssey once we get to his funeral. There'll be a tiny bit. The muses are mentioned there.
I think you're right. And that's because the whole tradition is so busy being sorry for Patroklos, who is a ritual substitute for Achilles, not only in dying in place of Achilles violently within the narrative of the Iliad, but also as the object of lamentation. So in a sense, if you see how sad people are about Patroklos, then you get a good idea of how sad people will be about Achilles.
That's true. Yeah, he's, in a way, that could lead very beautifully into our second question about Therapon.
Yes, well, yes.
Patroklos being the double, in a sense.
I'm ready whenever you are. Yes.
All right. Well,
there is actually another slightly linking between the two questions, and that was someone's been picking up on the ritual of the wedding ceremonies, and then also the ritual nature of Patroklos' sacrifice and the donning of the armor. So again, that's bringing those sort of parallels between these two questions to light, I think.
Yes, I really think that the death of Patroklos is therapeutic for Achilles, not just because Patroklos dies for him and Achilles finally gets to understand what his own value system is or should be, but also in the sense that the way people react to the death is the way it is expected for people to react to Achilles' death. So, and the reaction, of course, is lament, and you can only lament if you really care for somebody. I like the word care for because I've seen, I shouldn't say I've seen, I've heard physicians use that term about their patients, that so-and-so is under my care, or caring for patients, where self-identification, which is part of caring, is also healing.
But that process of identification is one of the issues that one of our participants has been talking about, thinking about therapy, psychiatry, that sort of thing. The person's listening to you, and then also to, as it were, part of the process of healing oneself is then to identify with the people that are maybe causing you ill.
Yes, yes.
And Patroklos does that listening and sharing as well as the actually going out and acting, doesn't he?
So I really think that this meaning that is never overt in the Iliad, which is therapeuo in the sense of care for somebody almost for their health. That's not in the Iliad, but in a sense you can see how that word is like an extension of what's going on in the Iliad.
Yes, one of the participants is wondering if the old man Phoenix, if his presence was therapeutic to Achilles in the Iliad.
Well, it should have been. It isn't right away, But it becomes therapeutic because it's his story that teaches Achilles who really matters more to him than anybody else, and that's Patroklos. And then that gets into what the name of Patroklos means, which is the glory of the ancestors. So in a sense, that shows that maybe to care for Patroklos is to care for your own reputation in epic. So it's a very, very important lesson, and he doesn't get it right away. Unfortunately for him, Patroklos dies before he gets it, and that's why he becomes the man of constant sorrow. But he does get it. It's just that it's not instantaneous. It's gradual, and it's an aha moment. Only that happens only after the death of Patroklos.
Yes.
For this hour, another participant drew parallels between Gilgamesh, Enkidu, and Achilles and Patroklos, and how, referring to specific passages from Iliad, that they complete each other's the self.
Yes.
And they need each other.
Yes.
Care for each other.
Yes. And
that's great.
I find the New Age expression to identify with very handy here. To identify with somebody is to understand their feelings, get into their mode of thinking. It's almost like to exchange feelings and thinkings in general to identify with. But if you do that, then what does that do with your identity? So I see that merger as a very important aspect of the whole narrative. And after all, isn't it interesting that in the end, Achilles and Patroklos are even buried inside one urn, as if they were even bodily connected to each other. So there's a lot of self-identification.
I was thinking, highlighting some part of one person, and maybe warrior side and emotional side in the Patroklos, and warrior side in the Achilles.
Yes.
And then I thought about a popular reference: "You complete me."
Yes, yes, yes. The two of them really do that, and that's why, in a way, I find the lament of Briseis over Patroklos so interesting, because on the surface you say, oh, well, big deal that Briseis would become the wife of Achilles. But the fact that it's Patroklos who is nice to Briseis, and may I put it this way, courts her for Achilles, shows that the role of Achilles the lover, which is not very evident in the Iliad, in our Iliad, is therapeutically taken over by the role of Patroklos, who does the nice things that a husband should do to a prospective wife.
Could I just also ask a little bit about Achilles' anger? The same participants also been talking about that once Patroklos goes out and is killed, Achilles' anger is redirected against the enemy.
Yes, 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 yes. So again, what happens? Complementarity. It's so beautifully fitting, the way they complement each other.
With all this talk of sympathy and identifying with, I keep coming back to the scene of Priam and Achilles at the very end of the Iliad, which we haven't quite gotten to yet in our reading.
Well, we can preview it for our dear participant.
But there's a lot, I can't quite figure out what I want to say about that, but there's a lot of identifying with going on in that scene.
Oh. And maybe I will focus on one detail. So there is Priam weeping for, let's say crying for Hector, his son. And then what does Achilles do? He cries for Patroklos and his father. But what is the relationship here? Well, the relationship is that Patroklos means the glory of the fathers, or let me put it more generally, the glory of the ancestors. Because after all, the father-son relationship is a shorthand way of saying ancestor to child relationship. So the lamentation that happens in 24 is a very complete one, I think. And I love the way Achilles oscillates between weeping for his father because he understands the situation of Priam precisely because of the father-son connection. In other words, he is moved because he suddenly connects the dots. I have a father, and my father would feel about my death the way Priam feels about the death of his son. And so, yeah, he's crying for his father, which is a way for him to connect with Priam. But by doing that, he's also crying for his own epic, which is the glory of the ancestors, and which is encoded in the name of Patroklos. So that's pretty good. It's a real connecting of dots in 24. And I know our participants aren't there yet, but it'll be such a beautiful experience when you all, dear participants, get there.
Yes. It always makes me think of Montaigne and La Boétie. Parce que c'était lui, parce que c'était moi.
Yeah, that's beautiful, beautiful. Yeah.
Mm.
And I have a fancy word for this: intersubjectivity.
Yeah.
It's where you trade places. For example, the I trades places with the you, or even with the he, she, it.
Which brings us nicely back to the poetry of Sappho and that identification.
Yes, yes, because her poetics represent a kind of masterpiece of intersubjectivity.
Yeah, one participant wrote, Sappho's poems are such a joy to read because of that quick frisson of delight when you get to the end and understand the scene she has been describing. And the amazing thing is that the pleasure is undiminished, no matter how many times you read the poem.
Beautiful. You know, that's a beautiful place to cut a halt to our conversation. You can't beat that formulation. Frisson of delight. Oh my goodness, that's what it is. So does that answer, dear friends, why what my motives were, at least? Okay, people have to read that chapter and it takes twice as long, that hour. It's hardly an hour, it's 2 hours at least, but I think it's worth it. It's beautiful.
Well, with that, thank you all for joining me again this time, and we'll be back soon for hours 7 and 8.
Thank you. Thank you so much.